Hello students, good morning. I am your educator Dolce, and in today's lecture we will go through the process of the pollination, that what is pollination, how it occurs, which kind of flowers are found, what are the types of pollination, how the pollen grains move from one point to other, from one stigma to the other, stamen to the other, and then we will see which kind of agents are responsible for the process of pollination, and ultimately we will see up that which kind of characters are responsible for taking place the process of the pollination. So first of all, what is pollination? So pollination is the mechanism, or it is the process of transfer of pollen grains from the anther, that is the male part, to the stigma, that is the female part, named as a pistil. So it comprises of a path in which we see how the pollen grains transfer from the anther to the stigma of the female part of the flower. It's a very complex process. It is not too simple as it observes. So first of all, we will see what are the kinds of pollination. So pollination is generally of three types. First is autogamy, second is geitonogamy, and third one is the xenogamy. As its name implies, auto means self. So it occurs within the same flower. So autogamy is a type of process of pollination in which the pollen grains are transferred within the same flower, means male and female both, that is the stamen and the pistil, they are present in the same flower. So the anther of that flower provides pollen grain to the stigma of the same flower. So transfer is within one flower, so it is said to be the autogamy. Usually the autogamy or the autogamous type of flowers are usually of two types. They can be chasmogamous or can be clistogamous. If the flower is chasmogamous, the flower is said to be chasmogamous if the anthers are exposed. Exposed means they are longer in size in comparison with other parts of the flower, or we can observe externally out of the flower. So the chasmogamous flower are those in which the anthers are exposed, or there are chances, if anthers are exposed, chances of cross fertilization are there, but it's not usual. Usually they undergo autogamous type of pollination. Second, the process is the clistogamous type of flowers. In these kind of flowers, the flowers are closed. It means they specifically undergo only self-pollination. It means if flowers are closed, so the anthers of the flower are exposed only to the stigma of that flower. They can't be transferred to some other kind of flower. That kind of flower are said to be clistogamous. So autogamy is the process in which the pollen grains are transferred within the same flower. It is of two types. Flowers are usually of two types. First are chasmogamous and second are clistogamous. Next, other two types of pollination are geitonogamy and the xenogamy. These are usually types of allogamies in which the pollination doesn't take place within the same flower. Some other kind of flowers are present or involved in the process of pollination. So geitonogamy is the transfer of the pollen grains between the different flowers, but those flowers must be present at the same plant. So if the flowers are present on the same plant, but the female and the male parts are on different type of flowers on the same plant, so the process is said to be the geitonogamy. Or if the transfer is between the different plants, means male flowers are different, plants are different than those from the female flowers, that is said to be the xenogamy. So pollination is of three types. First one is autogamy, in which the pollination occurs within the same flower. Geitonogamy, within same plant but different flowers. In xenogamy, the transfer is between different plants, means of a different types. Next is the type of agents that are involved in the process of pollination. Mainly two kind of agents are involved. First one are the abiotic, that are the non-living type of components, and second are the biotic or living type of the components, which play important role in the transfer of pollens from the anther to the stigma of the flower. Usually mainly two important abiotic factors are involved. First one is wind and second one is the water. Wind is the high speed of air which favor the transfer of anther due to flow of that wind in the path of the wind in which the wind is flowing. It follows the path that is followed by the wind. In this type of pollination, it is said to be the anemophily if it is offered by wind. It is said to be the hydro means water, hydrophily if it is transferred or the pollen grains are transferred with the help of the water. And biotic means in the living factors, which means living organisms. Usually the animals are involved in this process. Animals, both invertebrates and vertebrates, are involved in transfer of pollen from one plant to the other. So usually these agents are required if the pollination is a type of cross pollination. In self pollination, no agent is required. If we have to work on to different flowers or to different plants, then these agents should be required. So first are the birds. The pollination undergone by the birds is said to be the ornithophily. If it is done by the snails, so it is said to be the malacophily. If it is done by the bats, so it is known as chiropterophily. And if it is done by insects, it is said to be the entomophily. So based on the organism which are involved in process of the pollination, the names are given to the type of pollination. Before we move further, we must be familiar with that which kind of flowers or which kind of plants or which kind of pollens favor abiotic factor pollination or which favor biotic type of pollination. So if the pollen grains are non-sticky or they are light in weight, or if the stigma are exposed to wind or the stamens are exposed to wind, means anthers are exposed, or if the stigma is feathery to accept the pollen grains. Only in those conditions the pollination will be held with the help of the air. It means air ensures lightweight pollens which are non-sticky with exposed stamens and the feathery type of stigma to recept the pollen grains. While in case of hydrophily, usually this is undergone by the aquatic type of plants that are Vallisneria, Hydrilla and Zoostera. Specifically in Vallisneria, what happens? The Vallisneria plant, it moves at the surface of the water to undergo fertilization or to receive the pollination. This is the characteristic feature for the transfer of pollens in the Vallisneria, that is the hydrophily. In the hydrophily, the stigmas are of that kind so that they can stick to or they can attract the pollen grains flowing in the water current. The important factors to be discussed about, those are about the biotic factors. As you know, none of the biotic factor or the biotic organism or the living organism will move toward the flower until and unless it will receive any kind of benefit from that flower. Those kind of benefits include they may get some kind of nectar from the flower. If they receive nectar, then they will visit the flower, and whether they visit, they will receive the sticky pollen grains at their back and carry that pollen grain to the stigma of the flower. Next, flower should be colorful so that they get attracted to different kind of flowers, so they can observe those flowers from large distances. Flower should be large in size so that they can sit on the flower and the stigma can embed the pollen grains on their back. Or the fragrance of flower should be good so that those fragrant flowers are more capable of accepting or attracting the insects towards themselves. If the flowers are not nectary, they don't have any color, they don't have any fragrance, so they will definitely show the abiotic type of pollination. The characteristic factor about these is these are usually these are highly wasteful processes. Means the chances of fertilization or the chances of success are very low because these depend upon the chance factor. It is not necessary that the transfer will takes place at the specific site where we want to see. So it is not of that prime use but are necessary to ensure the cross pollination. The important mechanism here to discuss is the lever sap mechanism, in which the flower has some specific type of structure which favor the folding of the stigma at the back of insect, so that the stigma the stamen attaches the pollen grain to the back of the flower. When the insect, if that insect move to the some other flower, it transfer that pollen grains to the stigma of some other kind of flower. So insects are the most valuable type of agents which ensures the process of pollination. So this is all about pollination. If you have any doubt, you can ask. Thank you.